Okay, great.
Probably have a little delay, guys, and I'm really happy to see everybody who's gonna follow up the stream. This is the StreamYard software, so don't mind if we screw up today. We have a guest, Mike Ferreira, correct, right?
Yep, Ferreira,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So, and I probably had some hockey player with the name Ferreira in one of my favorites, and so I remember like
All right.
it says like Ferrer roll on the end, so it was like not Ra Ferreira. So it's like, where are you from, Mike?
Uh, I live in Iowa. I lived most of my life in Iowa. My name actually Ferreira is a Spanish and Portuguese heritage name. Um, yeah, I live in Iowa. Now, where are you at? You're in Moscow, right?
Yeah, I'm from Moscow actually, so it's like Russia, um, s- European part or something like this. So
Awesome. Hey, what? It's 3:36 p.m. here. What time is it for you?
it's around 11:40 right now, um,
Okay.
p.m.
Okay. Cool.
So, anyways, I think the stream started.
Okay.
Let's.
Okay. Great. What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about your interest and ask you a couple of questions because you
Okay.
post a bunch of stuff on Facebook, so might as well uh, see what's going on. I'm gonna check if the stream is okay online.
Okay.
Yes, 14 people already watching. Okay, guys. So Mike Ferreira is doing a bunch of stuff on Facebook, and he's like one of my most favorite Facebook author. I don't know how to call it correctly, blogger, author. So Mike is interested in comparison of the actual evidence of visible stuff, like what we can see right now on the footage, or without videos on YouTube or stuff like these, pictures on, and maybe witness it by our own eyes. So, and compare it to the methods and technologies of mining. So, am I correct, Mike?
Yeah. It seems to me that the whole world is a mine. Virtually every square inch of the planet that we live on is the remains of mining.
When did you come to this conclusion?
I guess maybe about 2 years ago, after I finally looked at flat Earth truth and realized, that hey, it does look like the world is flat. So I decided that I was going to explore volcanoes because it seemed to me if the Earth was flat, then there probably wasn't volcanoes. Because how could there be volcanoes on a flat Earth if there's no magma ball going on? So when I started to look into volcanoes, that's obviously when I started running into mining stuff, and I started realizing that hey, volcanoes look like mining, and then from there, all I've been doing is looking at mining and comparing it to landscapes on the Earth.
So, do you have any professional correlation to mining, or maybe, I don't know, your friends?
Nope, I know nothing about mining before I started doing this. Obviously, there's small mines in Iowa where I live, around the state. Nothing very large, not like a giant open pit mine, but there's gravel quarries and things like that. So, other than seeing those kind of things throughout my life, I really never knew anything about mining.
What about gas and oil? Do you have this stuff in Iowa? Because I was in
Um,
Wyoming. Wyoming has a bunch of those, stuff. How they call shale mining or whatever.
I am not aware of that type of mining going on in Iowa. 90% of Iowa is corn farming and soybean
Mm, mm.
farming. It's literally, I think, 90% of the square miles of Iowa is all farm fields.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like It's where the Dust Bowl also was, like in the 30s, right?
Well, the Dust Bowl was down in Oklahoma and
Oklahoma.
Texas. Yeah, I was in the Midwest. We'd be like the central upper Midwest.
Okay. Okay.
But Iowa's basically known for corn.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, I've heard like Russian General Secretary Khrushchev went to USA maybe in 59 or maybe 1958 or something. Met Kennedy, and he also visited the corn, corn production farming industry exhibition, and got a bunch of corn from there. And then he brought all this corn and technologies, and people probably helped him from the US to establish all this corn farming in Russia. Perhaps it was from Iowa. Who knows?
Very possible. Iowa, corn farming is big business. It's a global business. So,
is it basically GMO right now, or is still organic type of farming going on?
Well, most of the corn that you see in farm fields, if you were to drive through Iowa, are corn that's grown to feed cattle.
Oh, okay.
And animals. Now there are, some of the farmers, they'll have a smaller plot where they grow sweet corn, which is what we eat. But my understanding is that most of the corn grown for livestock purposes is a GMO corn.
Yeah, for beef production, right?
Yeah, yes, which is of course not very good for cows and for us.
Yeah. So returning back to mining, I know you have a lot of pictures, and perhaps many people in the chat seen some of them, or maybe most of them. But I would want to, ask you a couple of comments and questions when you show actually the pictures you're trying to, compare stuff and stuff like this. So, because I also been researching this mining stuff like 3 years ago, and I had made like a playlist of videos on ancient mining. And so maybe we can add the information that you missing, or I maybe will gain some new knowledge from you while we have this little interview. So
cool.
You mind if I share your screen?
No, okay. Please.
Everybody write us in the chat if you can see the screen.
Wait, you know what? I think I need to turn off Facebook so I don't hear those noises here. Give me a second to figure that out.
That'd be good.
Okay, so that's gone. And now let's see. For me to see you,
back to the folder. Just go back to the folder. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I got you. I got you now.
Yeah, people see it. Okay. You can just click the first one, and we just explain what you have.
Well, this is just a map, a sonar map of the oceans, and of course it shows the continents too. And when I look at something like this, I say to myself, well, hey, that looks like a quarry. And those look like mining piles. And if you look a little closer, like if you look at the Gulf of Mexico, it looks like a quarry to me.
Yeah, I've seen this stuff near Cuba, Puerto Rico, I think, Dominicana, and a bunch of stuff like this near Hawaii. It's like all these places with this type of landscape on the bottom.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Now, some people think that if you look at the sides of the Gulf of Mexico there, that
Mike, you can zoom in if you wanna zoom something. You can zoom in on your own viewer.
Okay. Oh yeah, all right.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Now, if you look at those walls, some people think that excavators carved those walls out and made them look like that. My idea about this is that it's hydraulic mining that has made that. That all the mining that was done on the earth in the ancient times was done hydraulically, not with excavators and powered machines.
Okay.
And if you look at other places under the ocean, and there's not a lot of photos of all this, so it's hard to find a lot of stuff. But when you look at them, like if you look at the the Mariana Trench area, you'll see it has a certain look to it. And then if you compare that to hydraulic mining in Spain, to me, it looks pretty much the same.
Yeah, those spikes on the top, right?
Yeah. Now, this place in Spain, they say that this was created by the Romans, and I doubt that that's true. I think this is also the work of the ancient miners, but I think accepted story of what that is that it was Roman hydraulic mining.
So they practiced it. So what was the pressure created with at Roman times?
Well, they say for that place in Spain that the water came from above, came down in pipes, and that the pressure of the water falling through the pipe, and as it comes out the end of the pipe, puts a large weight and force of water that when it hits the earth, it smashes it into little pieces.
Oh, just the above pressure. Yeah, I see. So it's pressed by the water from above.
Yes. Now, allegedly during the Roman times, and again, I don't believe that, it was just gravity, gravity fed, like the water just flowing down. And the same thing kind of happened in the California minings. They got water from high above the mountains and then ran them through pipes. And so it's just the weight and the water falling through the pipes made it come out the hose really fast, and that's how they did it. And it's not so much, I think, the pressure of the water coming out, but the weight of the stream of water hitting the rocks and smashing it like a hammer.
Yeah, it's literally the pressure, because the weight plus the speed is the pressure.
Yeah. Now, some landscapes, when I look at mountains, I think of mountains as there being two types. Type one is the landscapes, like here in Spain, the remnants of hydraulic mining. Now imagine this area was all filled to the top of the toppest peak there, and they use the hoses in the water, and they remove the earth, and the pieces that you see in these photos are what's left. And they have a certain look. They look like triangles a lot. They come to points all the time.
Yeah, I call them just it's literally what we have like in our kidneys, guys. These are concrements, because they used to flush the softer stuff, which contains more easy distracted elements. And this is the concrements. I call them concrements. This is what cannot be flushed by the water, or at least doesn't have any economic purpose to do that, I'd say.
Yeah, and usually when you see these pointy triangle looking things, there's also usually like an area where you can visualize where the water would have ran away toward, right? There's kind of a channel, a downward slope from these places, like especially if you look at Mount Everest and places like that, which I have some pictures of that I can show. And usually down at the bottom of these things, it's a lot of small particles, like washed away rocks, just like you would imagine it would look. Now, some mountains are not the remnants of hydraulic mining, but are waste piles.
Yeah, okay.
So when they use the hoses and they spray and they break apart the rocks, and then it starts to run down a channel, and they call it a slurry. And then they take that material and they process it, and then they remove the ore and things that they're looking for, and the remains is what goes into these waste piles. Now, this picture that I have here is at the top. That's the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and the picture at the bottom is mining waste piles, and you can see they look fairly similar.
Yeah.
I just threw some stuff in a folder. I thought
that's cool. This is actually, guys, this is the monitor. This is this device called the monitor. So it's literally named after I think the ancients had some type of digital monitor, probably computerized technology, because they did it on a larger scale, obviously. So this is the primitive technology, but it still has the same principle. Well,
yeah, no doubt about it. These are some examples of hydraulic mining during the California gold rush in the later 1800s.
Yeah, let's just stop on this point. And can you just, simply describe us what types of precious metals could be mined with these methods, so people can understand?
Well, these guys here, they're mining for gold.
What else can we do?
Well, I'm no expert in this, and it's really kind of hard to get a lot of information about hydraulic mining, because hydraulic mining causes a ton of pollution, and so it's not done very frequently.
Oh, okay.
After the gold rush, they outlawed it.
So primarily, probably gold, or maybe platinum, or maybe some silver. Possible.
My guess would be, for sure, any ferrous metal that you were looking for in the right place, that you can mine it that way.
Okay.
I don't think you'd be mining coal that way, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
For certain things, yeah.
Yeah, because I was covering like the mining of uranium, and uranium mining is done and proceeded via drilling. So it's like, and also you can drill different methods and get the iron from underneath also via drilling. So that's why
there's various ways that they do it. But one thing about hydraulic mining is hydraulic mining creates a certain look, and the looks that you see in these pictures is a good examples of the look of hydraulic mining.
Yeah, Ron Shackleton says gold, silver, and platinum.
Okay.
So probably I was correct. Okay.
Now, when you look at these pictures and you think about the top level of the cliffs in the background, before they got that far in their mining, that the top of that cliff went all the way across that land. There, it was full of land, right? So that those hoses washed away all those chunks of land. And depending on when you stop doing this, like if these guys in these photos suddenly turned off their hoses forever, those landscapes would look like that today. And the hydraulic mining landscapes that we see today, like Mount Everest, that's what it looked like when they stopped.
So they probably examine the area first, and then they see what they get, and after they get the results, they continue or stop this or that area of mining, right?
I would think so. And also it's also very possible that they left some of these things here for a reason other than just they were low on ores in those areas. They may have purposely left mountains to create weather, to create habitat, to manipulate where the wind flows and things like that. So it's very possible that what they left by design.
I mean, this is like the ancient miners. Okay, really good explanation of all this terraforming that we see around, guys.
Thank you. This picture here, this again is Spain, allegedly hydraulic mining by the Romans. I really like the bottom right picture. You can see they just cut a door through there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it, I mean, that looks like solid rock, right? Like that water can really do a lot of damage.
Yeah, looks like it.
I don't know. Do you want me to play a
Yeah, that'd be good.
2-minute video so you guys can see what hydraulic mining like looks like?
Just do it.
Oh, oh, oh.
So guys, you can see they're slowly like creating little flow of this muddy.
Yeah, and they just created a tunnel right there.
Yep. And how do they pick up? They collect the water with those stations and pumps, right? Or
Well, I guess it depends on the kind of setup they have. I'm not sure how it's being done here, but basically that water's running somewhere, and then they process it. There's about 20 seconds left.
yeah, so usual process is like,
See how they're spraying right here?
yeah.
Imagine a giant machine, way bigger than this, just systematically going back and forth and back and forth, up and down, just cutting down the whole earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I just realized during that video I had my speakers on, so I don't know if that was interfering with the sound. Does it sound better right now?
Yeah, we heard only you. Mostly didn't hear anything else.
Okay, because I had my speakers on in addition to my headphones. Okay, where was I? All right, so that's kind of just a little introduction into hydraulic mining and kind of what it looks like, and obviously after they get the material and process it, they have waste that remains, and this waste is piled up in different ways. Sometimes it's a pointy hill. Sometimes they pour it off the side of the quarry that they just dug, and they even fill those quarries in. Some of this waste is it's different material depending on what they were mining for and what was in the location that they were mining. They have different kinds of looks, but they all sort of kind of look the same, but yet they look different. And sometimes they can be two piles next to each other. And a lot of it just depends on how they do it and what they're doing. Like here's slag being poured. And, like I said, there's two kinds of mountains. The first one being hydraulic mining, the other one's being slag heaps and mining waste piles. Now, if you take this picture here, these four here, and imagine those being way, 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 way bigger, you'd think, look at that mountain.
Yeah.
And that's what mountains really are, is ancient mining waste piles. Now, no, go ahead.
So depending on the tracks, on the marks of, we can compare to this or that mining method, and so on and so forth, and see the tracks actually they've been they are measurable at least, and they have certain patterns which are like you just show with this Slag train. And this is just remarkable example. So sometimes scientists explain it like this is like volcanic something eruption. So what do you say about this?
Well, I think virtually every volcanic substance that they claim that there are can all basically be explained as different kinds of mining waste.
Have you heard about the terracones and the explosion of tops of the terracones, and they look like a little crater inside and stuff like this? Maybe some stuff.
Now,
Also,
when you say terracone, you that's
that's
you're meaning mining pile, right? With that word, I think, right?
yeah.
Well, there are certain kind of mining waste does catch fire. There's underground coal fires and fires and coal waste piles all the time, all around the world. So certain things do catch fire and burn.
Okay.
Not all mining piles, but some of them do.
Depending on what they were mining before.
Yeah, and what's in them, because over time when water starts interacting with them, they start mixing themselves up and forming new compounds, and things start to happen. Now, one really interesting thing about this hydraulic mining is where did all the water go? Right? If they mined the whole earth and mined it all down, right? Where did all that water go? I'm sure we've all seen quarries that look blue, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because it's blue because mining turns water blue. Now, if you were to look into mining wastewater and how the fresh water is changed, you'll see that mining wastewater has a higher salt level. It's got metals in it, a higher pH, and a higher water temperature. Isn't that interesting that that's the qualities of the ocean? Because the oceans are salty and have a higher pH and a higher water temperature. And the reason for that is because the oceans are the mining wastewater from the hydraulic mining of the earth. And that's why they're blue, salty, and have a higher pH.
Yeah, that's a very very good idea, in fact, because I was thinking about it, but I was thinking about like some seas and stuff like this. I wasn't thinking about the whole ocean, as you know. But somebody even made a video like with this title, like Earth, the Giant Quarry. But I didn't imagine this as what you said before about this salt water, and that the ocean water could be actually the quarry water. That's actually a great idea.
I think that's what it is. Now, whenever you want to get into it, even a question before that last question is, where did the water come from in the first place that they used to hydraulically mine in the first place, right? I don't know if you want me to get into that yet, because that's a way more crazier than what we're talking about right now.
Let's go crazy, because I am starting to believe you.
Okay, well, let's scroll around here. A lot of people think, most people obviously think the Earth is a globe, and a lot of people now think that the Earth is flat, and a lot of people think that the Earth is just some kind of a flat disk with a dome around it, right?
Yep.
And I have a hard time believing that one. I can't imagine a flat disk hanging out somewhere with a dome over it. It just doesn't make sense. It seems to be lopsided. How could was it float? What does it do, right? So I like this idea where you have something like a torus field, and it's a flat plane in the middle. And that flat plane is where we live. And the shell that goes completely around on both sides is the dome.
And it's surrounded by water, right?
And it's surrounded by water. And I think that the water came into the earth. And that's how they got the water pressure to mine it in the first place. They have an opening somewhere up high. And the image on the right is from the California Gold Rush. So obviously they probably didn't use a wooden structure like that, but some kind of sophisticated hose that brought the water down to the ground. And
there's also a term says like the belly button of the earth. Have you heard about it?
The belly button of the earth? No, I don't think I have.
A bunch of people use this in Russia.
Oh, I'll have to look into that. No,
Like where actually could the all energy or whatever, maybe water come from? Who knows?
yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff, it's kind of hard to know for sure about some of these things, but
So
I
if
don't
the
know.
Earth is actually a construct, like many people think, it could have these technological, entries for some liquids. Why not?
Yeah, why not? If you look at old artwork and stuff, allegedly old artwork, you'll see imagery that kind of matches up with this idea where we live in a dome. But I like the idea of that the dome has actually got
So
two sides.
then let's just stop. Let's go back to us together. So I mean, this idea that you just said, it actually shuts down the all the conversations about, I would say, what were actually ancient miners doing. They were actually not mining; they were just landscaping or terraforming. Because why would you make something then you go there to mine something? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think that's a good question, a good thing to think about. Well, it seems to me that there's more than one Earth, and that there has to be more than one Earth. There's probably many more structures just like Earth, off to the left, off to the right of us, in front of us, behind us, and that they build these things. And they create the torus energy field, they fill it in with material. They build the earth, they put the direct energy weapon that they use for zapping the ground to make the minerals and the ores in the first place. They create this giant structure, then they mine it. Where does the ore go from the mining that they did? Well, a lot of it may go on the other side of the ice wall, like here. It's very possible that we live on the in the inner part of that, and that there are people, our controllers, that live on the outside, and they live in a nice, clean, and pristine environment where there was no mining, creating pollution and stuff like that. And so they mine the crap out of our little part of the world, and they brought themselves the materials that they needed to make their world.
So literally, they doing what we are doing,
Sort
making
of.
a bunch of shitholes and one happy place, one
Yeah,
paradise.
I think so. Now, it's also possible that, because if you were going to make multiple Earths, where would all that material come from? It's possible a lot of the material that they generate on the planet and then mine is also used to build the next Earth. Something like that.
It's another story for what I was promoting before. That all those talks about the maps and stuff. I had my own explanation for all this stuff, but it's correlating with what you say, because I was always saying there's a bunch of places in the same level that we are, and probably as much as could be above us and below. So
Yeah. I mean, there in theory, I think could be another world just like ours on the bottom half of the ball, upside down, where their things over there fall up to us, but down to them. I would imagine that the flat plane is the negative part of the Earth, and
so yeah.
that the negative is the ground, and the plane in the middle is the ground on both sides. And so, depending on which side you're in, things would fall toward the plane.
Very excellent idea. Why not? Because grounding is, what we know in electricity. So,
Yeah, I think.
and returning to the, I would say, speculations on who was mining before and what actually happened. Because my theory says that there were probably those who were creating the stuff, and right now we see the takeover of those who are not creating, who is just, having the parasitic way of life and just robbing, stripping off whatever we got here, and that could be explaining that they actually take some stuff from us right now, because probably who were constructing this stuff were not robbing us or taking our stuff. They were just giving us something to live here, and this parasitic control of, so our Rome became a farm for somebody, or a mining site, as you say. So that could be happening after the creation.
Absolutely. I think I see Earth as a system. They build it, they mine us, and then they put us here. And what do we do? What is our function? Our function is to farm for them. And our function is to mine what they didn't mine, the harder places, and to remine their waste piles. Because a lot of the mining that we see today, we're actually mining the waste piles of the ancient miners.
Yeah.
And if you watch any of those, like on the Discovery Channel, those Gold Rush shows, you'll see there's early episodes, at least. I haven't watched it lately, but where they got on the wrong piece of land and they're mining waste. They're mining waste that people already mined. And my guess would be and the reason why gold is so small and they have to mine so much area to find those small pieces of gold is because we are mining the waste piles of the ancient miners in a lot of places.
Talking about the explosives, and that one of the explosive weaponry is called mine. So it's like a very famous thing in every war conflict, because a bunch of people get blown up on those mines. So, and also miners use mines. So what came first, the name of mining or the object, the flat disk that could be blowing stuff in war? So I think it's a rather hard question to answer. Probably the miners were the ones who invented the explosives, and that's why we see this name in the explosive weaponry.
Very possible. Now, again, my guess is that the miners, the ancient miners, anyway, they just use water. I don't think they use explosives. I don't think they used excavators. I think they just flat out took hoses and washed it all down to the present levels. Now, mind you, some of the present levels that, we're not all walking on the floor of a quarry, and off to the left and right of us are mountains, waste piles, and stuff like that. We're living on the top of slag heaps. A lot of the ground that we actually walk on is the top of giant, wide slag heaps.
Yeah, actually, I recall talking about the same stuff around 2 years ago at the coast of Black Sea, where I go every summer. We have this interesting construction, which is right now a seashore, but it looks like armored with layers of hard concrete and just the layers of regular dirt and lime dust, something like this. So I think the miners were those who created the place were thinking about slurry and stuff, so it won't just collapse into the ocean, so the people could have a solid place to build their places of human resources, the human resources for miners, so they can live somewhere, have a little town near the mine, so the miners have some place to go after the work and stuff like this. So that's why so many big cities are located near the shore, and that's why so many rivers have towns on them, because many mining was done on the rivers. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I think that sounds right. Here's an example of a giant slag heap. It's very possible that almost everywhere that we're walking on the top of a giant slag heap. Imagine they carved the land down farther than the level that you see there, and then they piled up slag on top of it, and that's what gives the ground a sturdy feel to it. That's why they can build skyscrapers in New York City and things like that. That's how railroad tracks can move across the country and not be, and having, and the railroad lines being straight, right? And not
So this
always
is
moving.
like an armored core, and the constructors or the construction engineers in Russia call it continent. This hard plate is called continent. So you have to stick some, how they call it in US, I don't know, some concrete sticks, and hammer it into the ground before you reach the continent. They call it the continent. This thick and solid core on which we can base our huge apartment buildings, like 25, 30 floors buildings. And this is how they do it right now. And I ask them, what is above the continent? They say mud, only mud. So
yeah. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. I would imagine that
hardcore, people saying hardcore. Yes, hardcore. Exactly.
I would think most highways, most interstates, those kind of places are all run on top of an ancient slag heap. That's why they stay in place so well. And when you're, I don't know about everywhere in the world, but like around here or like in Missouri and different places, when you're driving along the interstate, you see a lot of cliffs to your left and to your right. And if you look kind of closely at those cliffs, you'll see they kind of look like the bottom picture in the one I have up right now, because those things are slag heaps.
Yeah, looks like it.
Yeah, like here, this place right here in Venezuela, that's a giant slag heap. The area to the left, to the right, on each side of that thing was all hydraulically mined away, and that slag heap was placed at some level of the mining when they started to make that slag heap, and they just built it up. And the reason it remains there in such a sturdy condition is because it's a slag heap, and they're very, very, very solid. This is another example of one. And how many times do you see a cliff and they got these perfect, near perfect horizontal lines and stuff? It's because they're piled on there.
And can you zoom in a little? You zoom a little.
Zoom in there.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's better.
Right? How does an Earth created in space that kind of gels together and forms together, how does it make such perfect lines like that? I don't think that it can. The reason they look like that is because they were just piled up that way. If you take a look at some other things, kind of a similar nature, like if you take a look at obviously there's not a lot of pictures of the alleged tectonic plates, but here's one, and this is in Iceland. And you can see it looks pretty close to that photograph we talked about before in Spain. That's what it is. And you have to ask yourself, well, if that's a place where two plates are spreading apart, then what's right there in the middle of the floor?
Very good question.
Right? And it looks kind of sandy. You know why it looks sandy is because that's where the hydraulic mining water run through. And you always see small sand-like particles around hydraulic mining remnants. And that's why it looks like that. Now, when you look at things, for example, like bedrock, you'll see that bedrock has a million different looks. And this is one look. This is some bedrock in Spain, and you can see it looks kind of like copper slag. And the bedrock was put there to give us a sturdy place to put our trades and to put our roads and to build our cities and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Oh, here, let me show you this one other little thing here. I call these the Iowa boxes. And this is a GIF file, so it'll kind of take you through it. And if you kind of study it and look closely, you'll see that what are all these boxes? All these boxes, underneath these boxes is slag. And they built these roads in this fashion to aid in the farming that we do for them. Because in Iowa, during the harvest season, the whole place is full of trucks, taking out all the corn. And there's tons and tons and tons and tons of farm fields. And so trucks need access to all those fields. And that's why they went to the trouble of putting all those in. Now, if you think about the history of the United States and how people migrated, and then people eventually got to Iowa and they started establishing settlements and building towns, they would have never built the roads that way because the road systems would have been made in more of an ad hoc fashion, where wherever there was a town, roads would start coming out of it and going different places, and from some other town that was established, roads would come out of it and go other places. But if you look at Iowa as a whole, you'll see it's just a big giant grid. I doubt very much in the early days everybody came to an agreement. All right, everybody, no matter where you live, you got to build a road in a kind of a rectangular box shape. Everything's got to go north, south, east, and west. So I think those roads were there already long before we got here.
Yeah. What about forests? Have you thought about how they were, created?
Yes, actually, I have.
Show that lack of forests in 19th century.
Here, I don't have that in this folder that I prepared. Let me kind of go somewhere here. And yeah, I've been thinking about ideas of, where did the plants and trees and stuff come from in the first place? And this material here is called mineral wool, also called rock wool. And rock wool. And what rock wool is made of, it's made, believe it or not, of mining waste. It's made of slag. And believe it or not, you can grow plants in slag. So what were they doing in the beginning with all the ancient mining? They were making a ton of slag. So how did they plant the first trees? Because in the very beginning, there would have been no dirt yet. There would have been no grass, no soil, right? It would have just been rocks. So what they did is they take the slag that they were creating and they spun it like cotton candy and created a product similar to mineral wool. And so they laid down layers of mineral wool wherever they started planting trees, and that's where the trees were planted that they obviously would have brought from someplace else, in through the same kind of doors that the food come from and in the water, right? And so as they were mining and moving along, they were probably planting afterwards and cleaning up the place and preparing it for
the future population.
For the future, yes. And let's see, what else do I got? Here's some pictures of stuff growing out of rock wool. So my guess would be that obviously they brought the seeds and everything here, and but things grew originally on rock wool. And then over time, as the first set of trees grew and their leaves fell off and, they started dying and things like that, what happened? That is when the soil began to accumulate.
Yeah. What about those rice fields on the terraces in China? They also look like they've been completely set up on those tracks of mining.
Yeah, they sure do. They sure do. I have not taken a real good look at those, but
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, they look like mining. there's no doubt.
Well, miners also related to the farming, because it's it's two hands of one body, mining and farming.
Yeah. And if you look up in Wikipedia soil, I just found it kind of interesting that
enlarge a little bit just so we can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
And I just thought it was kind of interesting when they got down into it that basically soil is called fundamental stone. Because that's kind of where everything looks like it come from. All right, let's see, where were we? Wait, let's get to the right spot here. All right, what other little tidbits? How about a little quick one on volcanoes? You want to hear a little bit about volcanoes?
Yeah, I'm talking about volcanoes 3 years already.
Well, volcanoes are a very interesting topic. That's kind of what got me started into all this stuff. And so let's just talk, because words tell a lot of things, give a lot of clues about things. And so not only do I look at pictures, but I also look into the history of words related to mining and words related to volcanoes. And I found some kind of interesting things. For example, the word lava came about in 1750. And I'm thinking to myself, well, how on earth could Christopher Columbus have discovered America in 1492 and hadn't discovered a volcano and lava yet? So I find that to be kind of suspicious. And I find it a little suspicious that before they gave lava a name, they had already discovered and measured the speed of light. When you look at the synonyms for the word slag, some of them happen to be cinder, scoria, ashes, and lava. Yeah. So isn't it interesting that synonyms for mining slag have the same words as volcano terms? You think about a cinder cone volcano, right? It's slag. What is cinder? It's slag. It's all basically slag. Now, I've done a number of comparisons of volcanoes. Here's some. Are you able to see those well enough?
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, I really like the one.
You can enlarge a little bit and then scroll down from the top. Yeah, that'd be better.
Is that better? Yeah. I really like the one on the top left. It's just so perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I'm talking about. Those tops. If you don't cut the top from the mining's byproduct stockpile, it can be blown up like a volcano. It can be smoke and can be melting. So whatever. That's why they just cut the top of the mount of this hill. Yeah. Terracone. They call it terracone in Russia.
Yeah. When I learned that, then when I was later on in my searching, I started using the word terracone to search for mining piles so I could find more of them, and I found a lot of them that way. Now, if you want to, I can get into here in a minute where those holes come from and how they make those holes.
Yeah, just go ahead.
When I first started looking into volcanoes, and I looked at the very first one I ever looked at, which I don't even remember which one it was now, and I said, okay, that looks like a mining pile. And then I'm like, okay, all right, let me pick another volcano. Let me see if I can find a match for that. And bam, I hit it, found the next one, a match, and then third one, a match. And then I started to run into some really unusual things. And I'm thinking, how am I going to find matches for all those things? But there ends up being a match for virtually every volcano, no matter what it looks like. Maybe it's got things sitting on the top of it. Well, no problem. Maybe it's a double one. No problem. Virtually every shape that there is, even including this one there on the bottom right. I mean, there's a mining pile that looks exactly like it. What are the odds of all of that? Even this weird one here in the middle, in the top middle. When I saw that one, I'm like, oh, how am I going to find one that matches that? And bam, there it is. And on this one on the top left, I would imagine maybe that little white line that runs through there, that could easily have been where the conveyor belt ran that brought the material up there in the very first place.
Yeah, actually, I just remember myself 3 years ago when I was making those ancient mining videos, and people were like very boring, and I was like making them at 3 p.m. and at night. But I was working so hard, I made like tons of them, and you just remind me myself. it was like a rabbit hole. You just dive into this, and everything is like becomes mining. So it's like, wow.
I know it's just crazy. I've found these certain ideas, and I just apply it to everything mining. I look to match it with volcanoes and vice versa, and I just go from one place to the other and looking at things and finding things that match. And it seems to me that everything matches even way better than I could have ever expected. I would have never thought when I first started that I would get this far with it. I thought for sure after I got going onto it, I would find things that I couldn't explain, and that they would suggest to me that maybe volcanoes were actually real, but but that hasn't happened. Now, some things that they say are lava, like this one here, is nothing more than the collapse of the mining pile itself. That this flow right here in Alaska is nothing more than the mining pile collapsing, because sometimes mining piles collapse, like here in the picture on the right in Wales in the UK. That's a mining pile that collapsed and killed I don't know, 140 people or something like that in this town.
Yeah, and there's always a town near a volcano, guys. There's always a town that is suffering, or village that is suffering those lava stuff. Remember Hawaii volcanic eruption that was like a year ago or something, maybe a year and a half.
Yeah, I have a lot on Hawaii too. It's
people were filming how the lava was like crawling like a meter per hour or something like this. So
yeah, and this is Mount St. Helens, and I can explain how that eruption happened too. I have a lot of stuff on that too. And here's just some different kinds of volcanic landscapes. Things that aren't necessarily said to be volcanoes, but just landscapes that they claim are created by volcanoes. And you can see they too look like mining waste.
They even claim that the basalt or whatever hexagonal shape, clusters in the mountains are also volcanic. So they claim everything volcanic.
Yeah, everything that everything ancient mining they just say is volcano, and they just make up any word and anything they can think of to say why it's a volcano. Now, as far as like what creates the crater, right? What creates the crater is actually the directed energy weapon, and the directed energy weapon it ablates the rocks that pile is made of. It's basically turning these piles, the crater, into dust particles, and that laser ablation is what carves out the crater. And if you were to compare volcano craters to laser ablation craters, you would see that they all kind of look the same.
That is microscopic filming, right? This is what you call.
Oh yeah, the laser ablation stuff. That's all very small. Mm-hmm. That's all very small. Yeah.
Have you heard about the block cave mining method?
You said blockade.
Block cave. Two words.
Okay.
This is one of the most used technologies. So they dig some tunnel, put some explosives underneath, some certain plast of or layer of some ore or uranium, whatever, and then they blow up, and this is collapsing and creates this sinkhole.
Okay.
And it looks completely circular, and so that also can be the evidence of mining. It's what I discovered, a bunch of sinkholes in Russia. So I was trying to blame it all on gas bubbles, but eventually got to this block cave mining and also found it very interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. I'm not really too familiar with that. But as the directed energy weapon is carving out the crater, it creates the dust cloud that we. Here's some more examples of volcano craters versus laser ablation craters, and that's diamond there compared to a crater. And there's another example. But when they're in the process of let's see, where do I have that video at? When they're carving out the crater, that's what creates the dust clouds that we see. Most volcanic eruptions that you see or hear about or see on TV or on the internet are usually only ash eruptions, where you only see rock dust coming up into the sky and you don't see anything red. And what that is the laser ablating that hole and making it deeper and or wider.
So these are those lightning explosions that people often see during so-called eruptions. Actually, this is work that is performed in front of their eyes, and they don't see it, right?
Yeah. As far as the lightning, that's another issue. Are they? I haven't quite gotten deep into that one yet. I mean, are they just adding lightning to with Photoshop to the video? You know, are people that are really there seeing that lightning? I don't really know the answer to that yet. But could laser ablation create lightning and electrical discharges up above? I mean, a lot of this slag's got metal in it, so you start throwing a laser on a piece of metal, I would imagine you get some electrical sparking and arcing and things like that. So it's very, very possible. When you look closely at craters, what you'll see is that there's no passageway for any lava. That they have a hard flat or a hard round or whatever you want to call it, a solid bottom that you can walk onto. And I don't see how that's possible, because if lava comes shooting out under terrible pressure and it come up to the top, I would imagine there'd be a big gaping hole there. But there never is in any volcano. I'm yet to find one volcano that has a passageway that actually goes anywhere. There are about 8 volcanoes in the world where there's a crater, and then down below somewhere you'll see a little round lava pool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different kind of animal. We could get into that if you want to, but it's a lot to talk about. Now, this crater here, what you can see is that they've zapped it with the directed energy weapon on multiple occasions, and each time they do it, they make a new hole. And they could take the same hole and dig it deeper, do it 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a row and just make it deeper. Or they can move it off to the left, like here, and make one over there. Or they could do one on the side of the volcano. But the ash that you think that you see coming up is nothing more than laser ablated rock coming out of that pile. And when you look at volcanoes, you just don't see anywhere where any lava will come up out of the ground.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and I found this, let's see, where do I have that? Oh, wait. No, where do I? No, I don't. I just posted on Facebook just recently a video of Etna erupting, and I'm not sure where I got it. And you can, when you look at it, you can see that that while the top of the volcano is erupting and stuff is coming out, that the flow of the alleged lava down the side of it is not happening at all. That's actually stays in a fixed position. And I'd like to show that, but I'm not sure where I got it right now. All right, where was I? Let me find my page again. But that's a little bit about, well, here, let me show you a couple other things here, because there's so much to cover on volcanoes, and I don't know.
Yeah, I just imagine
I'm
have a lot.
I'm not sure how much time you want to put into this one, but
I think there's also one question that we should, I think, cover a little bit about the possibility of giant creatures that could be petrified. And you had this little talk with Stellium 7 about this elephant rock. And I think you have an idea that much of the stuff is just created by the miners in the shape that it looks right now. Could you please expand on this? Do you remember the case about the elephant rock in Spain?
Yeah, I did a post on the elephant rock somewhere. The elephant rock, I don't know if I have it right here. Oh, yeah, right here. The ancient miners loved elephants. Why did the ancient miners love elephants? Because elephants, what do elephants do? They suck up water into their trunks, and then they can blow it out, right? So if you're an ancient miner with a hose with water squirting out, what's going to be your favorite animal? An elephant. And I think that's why we see so many examples of elephants. And the ancient miners, they like to make art. Now, did they do it for a reason? I don't know. Or did they just do it for fun? Maybe they just did it for fun. This one I call the first ever selfie. Imagine the hose carving out the shape of that head, and he leaves it there and goes, "Oh, cool! Look at me! I made a a statue of myself." And I would imagine that maybe the ancient miners wore some headgear that kind of looked like that, and that he tried to create an image of himself. And there are other things on Earth that look like art to me, like these things here. The third one from the left, that's from the California Gold Rush, and that's during the hydraulic mining. It looks like a bag of gold, doesn't it? You can almost see the string going across. And then there's some other ones that kind of look kind of close. So did the ancient miners make bags of gold? And there's just various things that are around the earth that look like things, right? These toes here, is that really the toes of a giant, or is that mining slag or mining waste? Because not all mining waste is slag. Some of it's paste tailings and different kinds of things. Some of it is waste from non-ferrous metal processing. It's not all molten steel kind of things. So imagine when these toe-like structures were put there, imagine at one point they were soft before they hardened. And somebody said, okay, these look like toes. Let's put some toenails in them. So they just carved some lines in there to make them look like toenails. Something like that. If you're mining all day long, are you going to get bored and maybe have some fun and take something like that and stick it on that and say, well, look at the mushroom I created? Or
yeah, are you familiar with mud fossils university research?
Yes.
Have you seen his video? He's making videos and proving some rocks or something like tissue or maybe blood, something particles in it and stuff like this. And he's like comparing with the biology and stuff like this. So.
I've seen some of his work, and I don't agree with any of it. I don't think any of that exists. I think they're cherry picking things. This one looks like a head. This one looks like an arm. And if you look at every landscape on the earth, obviously you're going to find things that look like body parts and stuff like that. But I don't think that that's what they are, because I don't believe for 1 minute that flesh can fossilize and turn into stone. And then, Mud Fossil University says things, for example, there's 800-mile-long giants, giant dragons, and things like that, and 100-mile-tall people. And I can't imagine that could be true because, one, we don't see any structures for those people. All these giants that they say are mountains, well, where did they live? Where's the remains of their dwellings? There isn't any. How could an 800...
a feeding base.
Right? Yeah. What would they eat and all that stuff? There's other than some things look like body parts, the rest of it is not explained by anybody, and that's why I don't believe a word of it. I, for example, kind of do the same thing where I say, well, this volcano looks like a mining pile. But I don't just stop there. I don't just say they look like a mining pile, therefore volcanoes are fake. I go through way more aspects of it and piece it all together to make a coherent argument about it. It's not just that they look alike, because there's more to it.
Yeah, this is called Pareidolia when you see stuff. But, some people actually do what you say, the further research. And I suggest you watch, for example, this Mike, we call it Tezka in Russian when people have the same name. Mike Stellium also had the research on this mountain, and it's far more than just the look. So I think
maybe that's a little unfair. There are they compare some of this stuff that they look at, blood vessels and things.
He's talking about the eye structure, all these differences and similarities of the eye structure. For example, the ear and all these channels inside the skull of the elephant. So it's like very similar to what he observed on that mountain. That's why I truly believe that something is on this research, because it seems like that is like he has a huge list of similarities and coincidences, is what we call of that, because it's only coincidental evidence. And I agree with you. We have to difference what the toes, like you showed before, is similar, not the toes of the giant, of course, but when we see some real examples, and this is like not a 15-kilometer dragon, or just a couple of miles, maybe a rock of a couple of miles long. So this is not very big one, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible, but I just have a hard time believing that flesh could turn into stone. And if you were to look into somewhere, I have some stuff on this. I'm not sure where it is right this second, but what happens to a human body when it dies? When you die, you're gonna expand. Oh yeah, I was looking at that when I was looking at the Pompeii people stuff. When you die, you're going to go through changes as the gases build up in your body and try to escape, and you break down. I couldn't believe in a million years you could turn into stone in the same shape generally as that you were supposed to be.
Yeah, there's also actually these are actual research when even like I would say a tank that was sunk in the mud, and it turned to be a rock, a steel tank. So also the animals, like 20 years in the mud without oxygen, and they petrify. So it's like a bunch of this research, and who knows actually what was happening before, and maybe those titans were like examining the place, or maybe those test versions of the animals that were before everybody else was put there. So who knows?
I mean, anything is possible. Now that tank you're talking about, I'm pretty sure I've seen that, and I took a close look at it, and to me,
I think we should return to this talk on volcanoes and minings after a while, so you can take a look on what I was talking about. So, and maybe next time we should expand on those entrances and where the lava comes from, and all these possibilities. Also, very interesting topic is where the water comes from the tops, because there is no water source on the top. So I was always talking about the drilling, and I wonder what is your theory about that. When also you shown the picture when this wall and the water comes from the top. Also interesting to hear what you're gonna say about that next time. So thanks a lot everybody who was joining us today. I think we had a brilliant guest and a bunch of new ideas that we should think about, and hope you all have a very nice lockdown without any different stuff that could happen. So
Philip, thanks very much for having me on. It was a lot of fun, and it's an honor to talk to you, and a pleasure to do this with you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us, guys. See you later.
Bye. Thank you.